Hey everyone, it's Matt Carl at LeRoy Heritage Museum, and today I am in the hotel, and we're going to take a little tour of the attic. That is one place that I often hear people say that they're always wondered what the upstairs look like in the building. So we're going to take a little bit of a history tour of the attic and learn a little bit about the building. So here we're at the bottom of the steps, and we're going to head right up now. So the steps are pretty wide because the stairway is above the main stairs, and the main stairs are pretty large as well. So it is wide enough to be used as almost a public stairway. Although it's the third floor of the building, so it would never be able to be used for a public stairway or public access. But on the side walls, you can see it's wainscoting going up this stairway. And from this point, it's kind of interesting to look straight up into the tower of in the front of the building, which is quite a ways up from the base of the attic stairs. So keep in mind, this is an attic and it's dirty, like everyone's attic is, and we haven't done a whole lot up here since we got the building, but we have put in this stairway right here to help us get up onto the other level in the attic without killing ourselves. And also put up a little railing in order to keep us from falling off that level and down the stairs. So we'll turn around and look at the stairway we came up. So the attic up here has a floor most of the way through, and in the front of the building is the part that I call the tower. And when you scan around and look at the rest of the attic, it's pretty large. And there's a section that goes off there to the left. And then when you turn and look around behind where I'm at, there's a section here, which is actually above the ballroom. So walking over here, first of all, to look at the tower area. We'll stop here for a minute, and there's two windows on the front, one on the side, and then a very small one up on the side as well. And there's a floor in that area. So in order to get to that part, you have to step under a beam. And first of all, this is an unusual looking stairway with extremely steep steps. And that used to be over next to the ballroom ceiling, so that you could get up on top of there. As you can see, it's extremely dangerous. So we moved it over here, built a new set of steps. But we moved it over here where you could get up on this level right here. So this was intended so you could get up and look out these windows. So when you get up on here, you can see that there are stained glass windows, and the stained glass windows were in these windows, and the previous owner put in replacement windows. But if I hold one of them up, you can see the glass colors. So sometime we'll do something with those. Not sure what. If nothing else, it'll at least be in an exhibit downstairs probably. This is a little closer up view of the little window that looks out on over the roof. And something that is really strange is when you look out the window and see how steep the roof is from this vantage point. It's hard to see with this camera, but it is a pretty steep view from here. You can see it used to have blinds up here. The brackets are still there, and when you look in the old pictures of the hotel, if you look in the upper windows, you see there were curtains and blinds and everything. So that's left over from the old days. We're right over the highway here, so you can hear the highway pretty well when you're standing up here. But there's also a pretty good view of the town from up here as well. All right, so I'll go back down here. So lots of room in this attic. When we walk over here, you can look at this part here. This used to be the dormer window on the front of the building. If you look at the old pictures of the building, there was a dormer window on the front part of the roof facing the highway, and that was taken out by Stanley Morse. You can see where it was filled in there, though. The next thing is the small window that overlooks downtown LeRoy, which is kind of interesting. There's a pretty good view of the store and the downtown part of the town right here. But there's a close-up look at the shingle work, which is out there as well, which is pretty phenomenal woodworking. But in order to get the curved walls there in this window like they are, you can look at the back section to show how that was done. It's tongue and groove wood there, and in the process of making that, they created shelves inside of there as well. So that's pretty neat. One thing that people are always interested in when they come up here is the fact that there's a basketball hoop. Of course, that's left over from the Butters family, but later on they put in some additional bracing for the roof, and so made the basketball hoop unusable pretty much. But it's still up there. If we walk over here, lots of molding and such from around the building, but the thing that is most interesting is this piece here, which is very long and came from the front porch, original front porch of the building. You can see it runs all the way down to here, and it's in fantastic shape, and it's the only piece of the front porch that I know of that remains. That piece, I believe, came from the part of the porch that was in front of the lumber office that used to extend off the west side of the building, and when that lumber office was taken off, I think that this piece of trim was saved and put up here in the attic and up in the rafters above this back section. Actually, it's where it was, and it sat there ever since. Right up in there is where it was tucked away. So it's kind of an interesting little piece of history there. In the middle here are some things from other parts of the building. These are pieces from the back porch or the kitchen entry area. Same as that other piece over there, only these were out up until the mid-2000s, so they were not in as good a shape. One of the original screen doors that came off of the kitchen area. It's up there, and this is a piece of trim that came out of the old general store that was downstairs. This is the attic door, original attic door. It had been replaced. And of course, back in the back here, this is a section of the building that was over the hotel caretakers or proprietors part of the building. And underneath this blown-in insulation that was put in years ago has been found papers and interesting things left here from the original owners, the Lewises. So no telling what might be found under there in the future, but several things have been found under there up until now. Looking over along the wall, you can see the knob and tube wiring. All of that is disconnected. None of that is live, but there are sections still left in. And what's significant about it here is that this was the first building in town to have electricity long before electric came through this valley. They actually had a system set up with a gasoline engine in one of the Lewis brothers' houses, and the wiring was run down here to the hotel as well as to the other Lewis brothers' houses, and they got electric lights as a result. So it's kind of interesting to see the old wiring there. In the back peak there, you can see where they look like they had planned to put in a window in that back peak on this side, and apparently changed their mind later on. So what's really neat when you look at this up here is all of this lumber was sawed in the Lewis Brothers mill on Barkley Mountain. You can see they had circular saw in their mill, so the cuts are circular in shape. But all of this came off from the mountain and was cut up there, brought down, and the finished lumber downstairs was run through the planing mill in LeRoy, where Rancy Morse had his planing mill at one time, down behind what is now the community building. So you're looking at a lot of trees that came right off from the mountain when you look at the timber in this building. So when you look down here, there is a door. It's been filled in with insulation now, but there's a door here that used to open into the ballroom, the purpose for which is not quite clear. So we go up the steps here, and the main original chimney is here, still being used. It has a liner in it now, though. So we come up above the ballroom, and the ballroom has a floor in it of plywood now, and it didn't originally have a floor in it. It was just open floor joist. You can see that back here. And the previous owners put a floor in it and made it a little bit more useful. You can see a lot of the knob and tube wiring along the edge that used to feed the ballroom lights. And in the front, at the very front peak of the house above the ballroom, there's a stained glass window here, which had been redone at some point when the Butters family was here. And then there are two windows looking out that way. Those have obviously been replaced as well. If you look up in the peak up here again, you can see all sorts of lumber and things, and that came from the sawmill the Lewis brothers had on the mountain. The window here in the very peak gives you a pretty good view of the looking west down the main street through town. And then a window that looks out toward the property in the back. So that's an idea of what the attic looks like up here. It's interesting to stand back and look from one end of the building to the other, and you get an idea of how large the building is, because looking through that peak there makes it look like a huge barn. And one thing about the peak up there, there's a wire that hangs down. It's right here. If you look up there, there is an insulator, and if you look down through the attic, I can move the wire and you can see it move back and forth. That, I believe, is an old-time antenna from the 1920s era for AM or shortwave radio. That used to be able to get an aerial kit, they called it, and you could put it outside or you could put it in your attic, and this long copper wire acted as a long antenna, and it had insulators at both ends. At the other end it just connects to an insulator, and then this wire here would have dropped down and gone down through to a radio that probably was down in the house somewhere during the life of the house. So it was probably in the 20s or 30s era, either maybe when Dr. Bevan was here or when Stanley Morse was here. I'm thinking probably more like Stanley Morse, but that's a little interesting feature as well. So anyway, again, that's a look at the hotel attic.